All right, everybody. This is Layron. Welcome. This is Founders Day Weekend 5. We're here with Doug Davison, Smiteworks. We are here in the Discord for Fantasy Grounds Academy. Just wanted to touch bases with Doug and Smiteworks in regards to the platform and the cooperation and the communities and those sort of things. I would also maybe allow a few questions if you're open to it. And so we're just going to get started. So, Doug, I wanted to first of all thank you for showing up. It's just kind of early. Um, it's been a interesting year. A lot of changes have happened since last time we were together. Um, some of the things on the horizon look pretty promising. I'm pretty content as to what you got coming out here. But if you have anything you can tell us, like in regards to features, or if there's something that you're excited about that you're working on or that you're looking at, just you can tell us that kind of thing. And then, folks, if you guys have any questions for Doug, go ahead and ask. He may not know the answer, or maybe he can't answer it, but I'm pretty sure he'll do his best.
Great. No, well, thanks for having me on the stream, and of course, thanks for everything that you guys do at Fantasy Grounds Academy. And always a privilege to participate in any of these events and to talk with people directly. So, first off, just thanks, and thanks for everybody who's watching in. I do want to say that we've got a lot of things in the hopper that we've been working on. We've been working on for a while. Some of those are finally starting to come close to fruition of being ready to release. And we always have stuff in some form of development, and sometimes they take longer than other times. And so we tend to be a little bit, I guess, conservative on our announcements of things until they get really close to release, just because unexpected things happen. Development sometimes takes longer, and I'm not a big fan of the typical video game industry's approach to just say they set a deadline way in advance and then they just crunch until they can get it out the door, but meanwhile they burned out all of their employees and developers. So we take a much more laid back approach, and we just work on it until it's ready for release and then roll it out. So that comes from me and John and I both being developers, initially. So we have kind of a developer first view of how we want to run the company. So some of the things that I recently kind of leaked, I guess, earlier this week, I had a Doug's midweek sneak peek, which you can catch that on YouTube if you want. Uh, that's on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/fantasygrounds. And we have animated dice pack. We've got we're calling dice bundles. So we have those that are out there, and we've got them set up in such a way that they are actually unlocked for your account based off of what you own. But that way, they're basically available and kind of under the cover. Um, for all users, so that way, if you were to have a set of dice that I don't have, but you roll those dice, I get to see your cool new dice flying across my screen and doing stuff like that. And so that's kind of I think, a fun little thing that goes back to what my longer term goal is overall, which is to make the interface more immersive and to have more stuff kind of, that we can do that are more video gamey. So I like to add those tiny little bits of video gaminess in there that, things will pop up and do things. And, just, I think that'll make it more immersive. And I think it'll make, people that do streaming, I think it'll make that more exciting as well, as you have more stuff going on, so that you're not just looking at, when the DM's narrating and talking about a thing, that you're not looking at this kind of static view of text, basically, and like maybe one image here or there or whatever. So we try to do a little bit more of that. You saw that a little bit last year when we did stuff like um, the way tokens, the movement indicators now are a lot more colorful. The area of effect indicators and stuff like that are a lot more colorful, that sort of thing. And some of the effects that we added to images, when we initially launched Fantasy Ground. So just more of that sort of stuff. I'm always looking for opportunities that we can use to put that sort of stuff in. So on the not as flashy but equally important is continuing to work on some automation and just core functionality of the product itself. So we've added in some support for importing text from certain sources. Of course, the sources have to match up with what we want to import on some things, but to make it easier to get data into Fantasy Grounds. A very simple thing that was probably long overdue was just ability to copy. Once you have a formatted text, to be able to copy it around, within the interface more easily than what it was before. Whereas before it would lose it would copy as plain text and it would lose its styling and so forth. So, we put that sort of stuff in there. We'll see more of that. We'll expand out, some of those import capabilities and have lots more kind of sources that we will support over time. That will help with development of people that want to do their own homebrew stuff or people that just want to build their own content, from kind of pre-approved sources. So if Pathfinder has some things out there, or Dungeons and Dragons D&D Beyond has some content that's available only on D&D Beyond, it'll make it easier for people to get that sort of content directly into Fantasy Grounds. So that's something that's going on. The vehicles, the new vehicle rules that we put in, it's very abstract and kind of hand wavy is how it's actually kind of laid out in a lot of the actual rules coming down from Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast. But we try to look across all products that had vehicles included, which included like Descent into Avernus and the new upcoming Spelljammer and some of that sort of stuff, and look for commonality amongst those different things, even though it's not specifically called out in the D&D rules. We wanted to kind of look at that overall and make them, a first class actor within the combat tracker, so that now you can interact with those just like you would an NPC in a lot of ways. But they'll have their own nuances and their differences, and they'll have things like damage thresholds and things like that that you can cue in on, or target, if it's a larger thing, you could use it for robots or, anything that you want to have in a 5th edition setting. You could target specific elements of a vehicle. So a simple example is if you're dealing with ship to ship combat, you could target the sails, for instance, and it has its own bank of hit points and stuff like that. Or you could target, the wheels on a vehicle if it's a big vehicle or something, So you could break that out to whatever degree you want to have within your campaign and within your game, and then, utilize that. Or you could shoot the weapons off of a ship, or something. So
It's pretty cool.
if you ever played the old Spelljammer during the 2nd edition era, it had a lot more of that sort of stuff. It was very, very detailed. And they had the what was it called, the companion, or the I'm drawing a blank on the name of it now, but I had all that stuff, and I probably still have it buried somewhere. But they had the Spacefarer's Companion, I think, or something. I think it is what it was called. But they had even things like when you launched a catapult or a trebuchet, you had to track the actual missile as it traveled through hexes, and then whether it hit or not, and then, which part of the ship did it hit, and all that sort of stuff. So it doesn't go quite to that level, to that degree, but I think it should help, add a little bit more excitement and player decision making and choices into the game, which I think is really pretty cool and exciting. So we're looking forward to see when Spelljammer launches this, later in August. I guess it's not quite August yet. But yeah, it launches on my birthday. So it's one of my favorite all-time settings. So I'm very happy to see that in, and launches on the 16th. So that's
Cool.
cool.
We got a test game going up above us here. Colin and Poe are testing out some of the pre-release stuff.
Nice.
And then below here we got a Savage Worlds campaign, or not campaign, but a one-shot going on. Dos Welk and those guys. So one of the things I wanted to mention, anybody who's gathered here, is when I first started the community, I wasn't sure about where this was going to go, what direction. Doug did eventually reach out, and he asked if we can kind of change our name a little bit. So we worked on that, and years later, we're here. So this has been 5 years of doing this. And looking back at this, I think the greatest value for me personally is that I got to meet a bunch of cool people that are involved with Fantasy Grounds and the industry. Met some pretty interesting people just doing these shows. I do this Mapper's Delight every other year. I've met some pretty nice people, made some good allies there, and it's nice to have people like that to know. So if you have a project that you need to work on, or maybe you're going to make something in the future. It's good to have those kind of connections, and they'll go, oh yeah, I remember you. Maybe they'll make an exception for you, because most of them are pretty busy. They can't normally do commissions and that sort of thing, but never know. Um, the other thing is the cooperation that we've had between Smiteworks and the Fantasy Grounds Academy has been pretty decent. Like once in a while, Doug and I will have our differences, but it's nothing that I don't look at it as a threat or anything weird like that. I'm pretty grown up about it. I don't have issues with it, and generally it's just little things. But I want to tell you guys, I don't normally say this, but if I really need something, I reach out to Doug, and he'll do it. He doesn't hardly ever question. If I ask him, hey, I really want this for this reason, if I give him enough clause, he's pretty cool with it. And it's usually because we're doing something like we're showing a new product or something like that. And it isn't just for doing it or just for the sake of collecting. It's usually got a reason for it. And generally he's been pretty good about that, and I appreciate that a lot. That's I wouldn't say it's a perk, but it's certainly something that I don't want to abuse either. So, if I ask for something like that, I wouldn't do it just to do it. There's a reason behind it. Um, and the other thing is just having I guess taking the risk of allowing a community to represent most of your core values for the community is another thing, because sometimes you get different people that are in charge of communities, and they kind of lead the community astray. They kind of go in a direction that you may not agree with. So there's that too. So there's a lot of things that can make the community look bad or not look so attractive, and that discourages new people from wanting to join or use the product, even though you're not official representation of the product. If you're using the product and you're streaming it, or if you're introducing it to new people, you really are an ambassador for the platform, whether you know it or not. It just only takes one bad situation when people say, I'm not touching it. So that's something that we gotta think about when we represent any product. To be honest, I don't pretend to know a lot about marketing, but I'm starting to learn the trends and different things that people are looking for, and I see the bad stuff too, and I kind of know what not to do. So thanks, Doug, for helping us and supporting us, and then including us in quite a bit of stuff. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we get to see occasionally, little bits of beforehand, just so we have an idea of what's coming. But generally, we're just like the rest of you. Like we don't get any kickdowns or anything like that, really. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, you guys, what you've grown, and the reasoning behind it, just as purely to try to help the community and to give back to the community and to help ease people's transition into it, and to get online and gaming is very commendable just on its own. And so that's why we've always been willing to support you guys and what you do. And like I said, giving our feedback where we feel like it would be helpful, and you know that sort of thing. So I think it's definitely a partnership, but it's also one where we try to respect as much as possible your all's autonomy, so that you can run things the way that you wanted to run things. Just with a few little caveats with anytime someone's using Fantasy Grounds as a part of the title, obviously that has a little bit of extra considerations that we try to work with you guys on. But yeah, for the most part, I think that's great. And all of the people that have stepped up and have taught classes over the years, and I mean that's what drew me ultimately to acquiring the company for Smiteworks to begin with. What really was that I felt like it had an excellent community, and just the gamer community in general it was really strong with Fantasy Grounds. And it's not always true across all other game platforms. I mean, there are other games out there that don't have a good community. People often refer to, oh, that community is a real toxic environment or whatever. And I don't feel like we have that with Fantasy Grounds. I feel like people have almost always been willing to help other people in the community, and willing to have, differences of opinions without, devolving into, edition wars or this or that or whatever. So I feel like it's been really pretty strong. And so I'm happy to see it continue to grow.
Yeah, I've seen very little attrition or anything like that. There's been a few people, but you're always going to have that. So I'm not I'm not disappointed at all. I think we have a really solid user base. Some of the other things that we like to do here in this community is connect people together with different types of levels of people that are involved with the content. So you got, Doug's actually one of the owners, and we got developers that we invited quite a bit that are working with Smiteworks or developing a rule set. We also have people from the outside that do artwork and maps, tokens, and that sort of thing, because we want to connect everyone together. It's nice to kind of know who you're buying from and who you're investing in, and the talents of the people that are actually doing the work. It's nice to know their process, and maybe even insight, or if like someone else wanted to step up and do something full time, like maybe they want to go from a regular job to an artwork type, art based work, that sort of thing. So the community is good for that. We have, we kind of have that vibe going. And it's grown over the years. Like I remember asking people to come to the college and get, or well, it was college back then, but the academy, and to give presentations. They wouldn't do it, but now it's starting to change a little bit, and it comes with a reputation, and it kind of comes with how you approach it, and also just the risk that you're going to be potentially, the way you're going to be presented, especially in a live stream. So there's that too. But if you guys have any questions for Doug regarding Fantasy Grounds, or myself regarding the community, or maybe you have something you want to share that's been positive for you over the last couple of years, because there's quite a few people that have come and gone through here, and we're still sitting at right about 10K, or really close to it, anyways. And a lot of those individuals have moved on. Any given time, you probably got about 2,000 people active on Discord. And then on top of that, those 2,000 aren't necessarily in Fantasy Grounds Academy either. So they could be on other networks. But I know we've had a few good communities spin off of here. I know that there's quite a few members in other Fantasy Grounds Discords that have started here and have kind of moved on to do their own thing. They're either publishing content, or they're running a game server, or whatever it may be. But a lot of those individuals made up our core volunteers here. So we've done good in that regards too, and for long-term effects. So that's a good thing. I don't know if we're creating good monsters for you or bad ones, but we're creating a bunch of people that are in gaming, that are hungry. They want Fantasy Grounds. They want to create their own content. That sort of thing. So that's what we're trying to encourage is game masters to run more games.
Yeah, and I especially like whenever I see, people getting into the industry and being a content producer and being able to put their creative content out there in the world for other people to consume. And so I recognize, even in chat here, we've got Jane Luz, I know, has got a bunch of token packs and that sort of stuff that I recall working with and getting onto the storefront. And so I'm always happy to see that sort of stuff. The Forge, we put that out there as well. And I just pulled up the numbers while we were talking, and little over 150 crafters have signed up for that and pushed out around 700 or so items that have shown up on the Forge. And so that whole self-publishing platform, to see that continue to grow, and for people to be able to, it may not be a full-time job for a lot of people yet, but you never know, it could move into something that's full time for someone where they get to just follow their passion completely instead of doing whatever they, normally do to pay the bills. And that's kind of what I had too. I was, working in the corporate world doing a bunch of stuff. And so this was like a side project of mine with Smiteworks and with Fantasy Grounds. And eventually I just decided to jump in full force and just focus only on that. And it ended up working out. But yeah, initially you know, it's, 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 it's scary to do that. And so to see that you can start to make some money and build a little bit of traction and to start to build up momentum. And we're just one of the BTTs that's out there. So the fact that you got us and you got other BTTs and you can sell content on all of them it's a new time. I think it's easier in a lot of ways for people to get their content out there and in front of people.
Yeah, this is a good time. It's like a golden age for getting in on these virtual tabletops because there's still a quite, even though the market might be a little saturated in some aspects, there's just so many things you can get involved with.
Yeah, I understand the saturation thing is tough. My son is actually he's 16 and he just launched his third game on Steam and he's coming across the cold hard reality of you're just a small drop in the bucket there and there are so many games releasing every single week that you are just you know your moment in the spotlight passes by almost immediately and then it's hard to get people to even look at your stuff, so yeah, it's not easy. Even having a platform that's easy to publish to doesn't mean that the job itself is easy or that it's easy to build up a fan base or that sort of stuff, even with excellent content. So I mean, uh, it's like running a business. It's just you got to be out there and market yourself and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. So we're gonna talk about let's talk about the I guess the release of the dice thing. I guess you kind of brought that up earlier. A lot of people weren't here. Um, are you looking at getting that out by the end of summer, kind of thing, or is that what you're hoping?
Uh, yeah, what does summer go through technically? I mean, I always have to think
Well,
because I always think.
September, early September.
I mean, I think that's very possible. I think we're looking at a September release is kind of what
Yeah,
we're
that's
shooting
cool.
for right now.
Yeah, that seems fair. I know you can't give an exact date because things shift around. You got to change that, but it gives us an idea where you're going. And I don't think that affects gameplay so much. So even if you don't get it out right in September, maybe it's October or something. But it doesn't affect the way Fantasy Grounds works as in regards to playing. So it's more
Yeah, and I think we're
cosmetic.
gonna have kind of a staggered release. So we're gonna release it with kind of a basic set where you can swap out your main dice basically, and then it'll just change your entire dice set out. But we have some ideas on how we can really make it even cooler in the future. And one of the things that I especially like the idea of, which will take longer, uh, would be the idea of you can have different dice linked to different things. So, if you have a spell that deals cold damage and you cast that, it'll have one set of dice that flies off that look like they're frosty,
Cool.
cold things, or lightning dice will have, if you're dealing lightning damage, it'll have, its own kind of theme or fire stuff. And
Right.
that way, if you're using a weapon that does, acid damage plus slashing plus, radiant damage or whatever, you'll have all these kind of different colored dice. We just have to see how that all looks together too. We want to make sure it doesn't look garish when you have like all these different things going off at once, because it could look like trash. I mean, it sounds good in my head, but
hmm
when we actually see it in practice, it may not be good. I don't know. So we got
Yeah,
to
it
play
might be a
around with
little
that.
much.
It might be a little bit too much, and we got to make sure that the UI to assign those things is easy to do as well, and that we can deliver those in a good way. So i
Yeah,
think
and
i think we'll be
overhead
fine. I
too.
think we got a lot of opportunities with that. I'm really excited about dice in general, and we've not even really we're still playing around with a few things on the skins and the models that we're going to ultimately settle in on. We might switch those out, but I haven't even really had a chance to see the best of what I feel like Josh Watma is going to be able to do with some of those dice. But so right now we're mostly just using some effects packages that we've acquired for use, and not really delve too much into like crazy skins and textures and stuff. But I think it'll be really pretty cool. I'm really excited about that.
That helps the immersion for sure. And on top of that, I really liked the I think it was Fallout, the theme. I think it had like a little spinning fan, or like a little animated tidbits on the edges of the theme. I think there was something like that, if I remember right. Like when you clicked a button, it would turn on or off some lights or something like that. It was kind of cool. There was some kind of animation to the theme. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it looked really cool.
Yeah, the Fallout theme and the rule set, just in general, really like that one. I'm planning on running a Fallout game locally with some folks here, and just going to be using that on my laptop and to just manage the campaign and stuff. And so
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to that. I made the mistake since I'm running it in person. I'm doing a bunch of the miniatures and all those resin resin miniatures and stuff like that. And my wife is about to kill me because I was like, "Oh, I need that one. I need that one too." And she's like, "No, you don't need those
Oh,
things."
you don't need it. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably a real burden to be married to a gamer guy. my wife too. She's like, "Wow, you just dropped like how much on that?" And I was like, "Yeah,
The toys
yeah,
are expensive, but the toys are expensive with a lot of things.
oh yeah,
The more adult you get, I know my wife has got her own, hobbies that she has that she does, and some people throw money at cars or sporting events or whatever. So there's always going to be something, and to me, gaming is when you figure out like the hours of entertainment you can get out of a lot of the gaming expenses, then really doesn't end up being too much.
yeah." That's what's kind of cool about something like Fantasy Grounds is you have kind of a replay value there, where in a lot of hobbies and things that you invest in, usually you don't get to use it at all, or you use it once and that's it.
The key is that you have to force yourself to actually be using the stuff you're doing, and don't just
Exactly.
become a collector, because I think a
Hmm.
lot of people become collectors. I have a stepdad of mine who's a video gamer, and he has this huge, extensive Steam library that's like a mile long. It looks like a CVS receipt, it's it just keeps going and going and going. But he doesn't have any time to play them. He just buys them whenever they're sales, and he adds saying, "Oh, that looks cool," add it to his account. But I'm like, but you're not playing the games, and eventually he's not retired yet. He's got another 7 months before he retires. Maybe he'll start working through it when he retires. But I think at this point he'd have to live 3 lifetimes to play the games
I
that he
hear
has on
you.
his account.
Yeah, I got like that too, and I kind of gave up on video games because I got tired of they got repetitious in the sense that you got this, you buy it, you pay $70, and then you got to pay for all this DLC, and then on top of that after you've gone through it, there's really not a whole lot of replay value, and that's one of the reasons
What's
I
funny
stopped.
is when you have more traditional video game people, they come to the Steam page for Fantasy Grounds, and then they just look at the DLC because they're used to saying, "Hey, I want to buy this game with all the DLC," and they're like, "There's like 2,000 items out here." Like, well, yeah, it's like a whole game store. So that's always kind of funny to see.
Yeah, I looking through just some things online with different platforms, and I've noticed that Fantasy Grounds being available on Steam is a big deal in regards to accessibility. So if you're able to buy things through Steam, if you're a game publisher, even though you don't make as much maybe on it, it's it's a good thing, especially internationally. So whoever made that decision early on to do Steam was pretty smart. It is a pain in the butt, but it is something that I think was a good move. Whoever decided to
Well, I
do that.
think that going on to Steam is a first step. Once I went full time on Fantasy Grounds,
Hmm.
that was my very first major thing. I said, all right, we have to do this. And so I focused my attention on that initially, like right out of the gate. And
It's
took a
good.
little while to jump through all the, back then it was a lot more complicated to get
Hmm.
something on Steam. You had to go through this whole green light process and everything else. So it was a lot more involved. But yeah, once we got on there, I feel like looking back on the history of the company, it basically led to us, I think, being able to convince Wizards of the Coast to license to us because we had the Steam presence.
Yep.
And to me, I think we would have not gotten the license for Dungeons and Dragons had we not been on Steam, I think.
Probably. It's probably a big part of that decision process. The other thing is a partnership with Paizo. Is there any ideas or plans to potentially with a different publisher, maybe? Like maybe
I
another
mean, all
group?
the other people that sell through Paizo.com.
No, I mean like let's say a portal for I don't know, maybe Modifius. You know, maybe there's some kind of incentive there to create a partnership portal type thing.
Oh, you mean like the discount stuff that we have with
Yeah,
Paizo
kind
and
of like a
team up with?
partnership, like you have with Paizo in a sense.
Yeah. So I mean, the thing for people that are tuning in, if you're maybe not aware of it, so we have a special relationship with Paizo that we have currently in our contract. We do have to price things at MSRP, um, but they have a thing where if you've already purchased the PDF at their site, they have a sync mechanism that allows us to sync that, and then we are allowed to discount it for that full amount of however much you paid for the PDF. So then you only pay the difference, which in some products is not that much. Like some of the books are only $10 or $15 off of a $40 product, basically. But in other ones, it's like 70% off the product, and you can get it. A lot of these really big adventures are like $6 or $7 for like a 200 or 300 page adventure or something like that, that would be normally a $60 product, 50 or $60 product. So, um, that I think is really pretty cool. We are looking to probably change our contract with them, because I think some of the things that we have, they want to kind of go back and reevaluate, just because they're set up initially, and this is true of almost all the publishers, they're set up initially as a print.
Hmm.
They have a print mentality. So, they have some pricing on some products that doesn't necessarily make sense for a digital world. So, one example, for instance, would be flip mats. Flip mats
Hmm.
are $14 or $20 or whatever, because they're normally printed these big, dry erase battle maps. But when you boil it down to a digital product, it's only like a couple images. And so, yeah, we can add the line of sight on things, and we can, make it as great as possible for the VTT world, but it's probably not worth $20. I mean, I wouldn't think so. So, that sort of stuff, I think we need to try to work with them on to get better pricing on some of those things, just because
Yeah, it
we
makes
want to
sense.
make it, we want to make it, right for the audience. And I think that print mentality of MSRP doesn't always carry.
The only thing I can think of that justifies that kind of cost is if it was in a way where you could, have more variation on the base maps. That's probably about the only way you could spin that, positively.
Yeah, and whenever I've done the conversions on a couple of the lip tile type stuff,
Hmm.
I've tried to also take an extra step of saying, okay, well, can I make a brush that lets me paint the walls of any way that I want, or can I turn this into,
Right.
basically I try to look for patterns and brushes that I could expose, and break it out so it's even better than it's not just a direct translation of physical to
Right.
other, but we don't do all of our conversions in house either, though. So we do have other third party people that community developers that do some of those conversion work. And so, I don't know that they necessarily always do that same approach. They may be looking to do just a one-to-one translation.
Hmm.
You know,
So we had some pretty good guests so far this year. We had Andrew Gaska from the Aliens franchise. That was pretty good to have him here. He did some talking about the how he's basically the aficionado of all the franchises now, including the games, the toys, the comics, everything. And he helps keep that aligned. And he's actually a gamer, so when whoever owns the IP for Alien, they approach him and they're like, "Hey, you know more about this world than we do." So they gave him a position where he actually, he manages that whole thing, but he also writes the adventures and the stuff with, with the publishers. So we had him on. We had the Symborum artists on, or our authors. That was really cool. I got to hang out with some nice new community members during David Middleton's Memorial Convention this year, so that was interesting. And then, of course, we got some really cool lineups. Like later today, Jan and some of the others will be on for tokens. And then tomorrow we're doing an RPG audio symposium. So, we've done a lot of good stuff this year in regards to community content. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on here at least once, Doug, is to, kind of say hi and kind of just casual conversation in regards to the, fantasy grounds, at least, and things that are related to it.
Yeah, we've got, so I had meetings with Sirenscape earlier this week, and so we've got some pretty cool stuff that we'll be announcing collaboratively here very shortly, so definitely some cool stuff. I think I maybe mentioned a little bit of it in my midweek leak sneak peek, whatever. But yeah, some excellent stuff. I'm looking forward to that. That's another thing that I think is going to be really pretty cool is those tie-ins to where you get context sensitive sounds as you're playing through an adventure, and it's just easy to run and manage the whole thing without having to have a bunch of other windows open and stuff. So it should be really cool.
Yeah, they have some of their own features that they want to announce coming up for Gen Con, so that's going to be interesting. They're making some changes in the right direction for sure. Does anyone here have any direct questions or comments for Doug while he's here? We got about 20 minutes or so. Okay, well, I will mention that we have a survey that I published a couple of months ago, collecting the data on that. I'm gonna go over that actually Sunday night. There's some comments on there that I can address that I don't know who asked them because it's completely anonymous, but there's some telling information in there. And what I'm finding is that the community doesn't necessarily want classes all the time. They just want answers, and that's really kind of what the data says. Even though it's a small portion, it's the more active portion. So that has shifted quite a bit since we started the community. So the main ask is to have the resources available when they need it. And then the other thing,
one of the things that we get asked a lot also is for people that are trying to find games and just connecting people to play games.
Yep.
That's probably one of the number one things that we see that we get asked. That's not like, hey, how do I do this or that or whatever.
Right.
It's all right. How can I find people to play with? Where do I go? Do I go to Discord? Do I go to the website and the forums, or that sort of stuff? And so just trying to get people connected.
Yeah, we've done that, and we actually have a section for that. We have two sections actually. One is just to point to a bunch of resources or other Discord communities that we're kind of partnering with that we know is a good place to send new people. Because that's the other thing is I don't want to send them into a death trap. That's kind of how I feel about it. If we send them to the wrong people, they're gonna probably never play again, and that's the worst thing that I think could come out of it. I'd almost rather not say anything, to be honest. But there hasn't been much of that. But that is something I keep in mind when I direct people out of here. Is I don't want to send them to somewhere that's going to probably discourage them from wanting to play. The other thing is that people like having access to people like Zacchaeus and some of the experts that are really good at certain things in Fantasy Grounds. And then also just going through all the text channels where people are talking, and you can learn a lot of stuff. So there's a lot of lurking going on